Average Woodsman here, back with another video. So today I'm out here hunting. I'm going to be hunting all weekend, and while I was out here I wanted to go over one of my favorite knives, a knife that you guys have seen in a lot of videos I've had for a long time. I use it a lot, I carry it a lot, and I just kind of wanted to talk about it a little bit and maybe go over using it. I was thinking about building a bank snare for fishing. I'm not actually going to do any fishing. Like I said, I'm mainly out here to do some hunting, but I figured I would demonstrate. It's one of my favorite bank sets to set when I'm out. So I wanted to kind of go over that, go over the knife, demonstrate some carving with it, because to make it you have to make some notching. You have to do a decent amount of carving, so I think it would be a good demonstration of the knife's ability, plus its size. If you see me moving, swiping a lot, the mosquitoes have been like a cloud this morning, so they've been really bad. But yeah, I just want to kind of go over this knife. This is it right here. It is the Battle Horse Knives. This is the Slug. It's an 01 tool steel, micarta scales. It is full tang, 90-degree spine. I want to say it's an 1/8 of an inch thick, if I remember correctly. It has a pretty short blade, around 2 3/4 maybe. I'll put a link to it down in the description so you guys can see it. But this is their kydex sheath that comes with it. I think it actually comes with a leather sheath, but I think, if I remember correctly, like I said, I've had this for about 2 years now. I actually ordered this one as an option instead of just the standard sheath. And yeah, as you can see, it's definitely loved. Scandinavian grind, which is my favorite. Super comfortable in the hand. Carves really well. Is really good for fine tasks. Has a good amount of belly on it, so if you wanted to use this for skinning, I've used this to process a couple squirrel. It works really well for that because of that belly. I just like the knife a lot. Has a decent size handle for the size of the blade too, which is another thing I like, so you can get a full grip on it. As you can see, I still have a little bit of space. Now remember, I don't have massive hands, but if you have like extra large size hands, it might be a little small for you. But if you have average size hands, or maybe even large, if you wear large size gloves, you'll probably be able to fit this thing pretty well. Fits me really well. I get a good grip on it. Still have a little bit back here, and it's really comfortable to use for long periods of time, which is important. It also has a lanyard hole if that's something you're interested in. And yeah, I love it. I've had it for probably close to a year now, maybe a little over a year, and use it all the time. It's one of my favorite blades to use, one of my favorite blades to carry, because I can carry it right on my belt. I can access it easily, pull it out, use it, and it goes right back in the kydex sheath. So let's go ahead and I'll demonstrate making that set. We'll do some carving and stuff like that with it so you guys can see me using it, and then we'll go ahead and close out the video. Alright guys, so it's already starting to warm up. It's supposed to be in the mid-80s today, so I think gone is our cool weather that we had for a little while. So obviously things you're going to need 2 sticks. I actually cut these off a dead cypress, bald cypress, so this is bald cypress, and you're going to need a blade. I cut this one a lot longer than I would usually, because this one's actually going to be your trigger. But I cut this one longer because of the simple fact that around this lake, it's almost like a bog or a swamp. It's very swampy. Most of the year it is a little bit more shallow and swampy than during the rainy season. The rainy season, it comes up about 2 feet deeper, but it does, this lake does hold, or pond, this pond does hold fish all year round, mainly bluegill, and you get some smaller bass, nothing really big, but it does hold fish because it has water in it all year, and it gets a lot of activity. But right now it's really shallow, so it's really wet around the edges and really marshy. So I made this longer so it can go deeper into the ground, and I don't have as much of an issue when I attach my pole to it and it doesn't pull it out. That's why I made this one a little bit longer. All right, so before we bust out like our line and our hook and our bank line and all that stuff, we're gonna wanna carve some notches actually in our stake stick and our stick for our trigger. So this will be our trigger stick, this will be our stake stick. So you're gonna wanna come in here and do just some push cuts here. Come in here. This is another reason why I like Scandi grind so much. Carves really well, and in my experience, this is just my experience, I don't find it to be as much of an issue as people claim when it comes to like processing game, food prep, that kind of stuff. Personally, I find that it works really well for that stuff also, and I also don't find that the edge is as fragile as people like to claim. I've done batoning, I've done chopping with Scandi ground blades. My Pathfinder knife shop, the forest tool, is a Scandi grind, and I've never had any issues with chopping and splitting with that. So, and like I said, I've processed a lot of game animals over the years with Scandi knives. I've skinned out a lot of animals, processed a lot of animals, and I've never personally had an issue. So there you go, that's the first notch that we're gonna make. Super quick, super easy, down and dirty, no problem there. Now what I'm going to do probably on this one is I'm just gonna carve out one side of this, make a stake with it. I don't need to do this side because this is actually gonna create like a little hook in the dirt. Like I said, it's really, really, really wet over there. So I wanna get as much traction as I can. That's also why I'm not gonna remove any of this bark. You don't really need to do that with something like a bank set. All right, so now that one's done. I'm gonna carve a notch so this can go here. One thing that I want to do though, you guys can see this, I wanna make sure that the notch right here fits into the other notch, but I also wanna have some area left below here where I can attach my fishing line to, because remember, you're gonna have your bank line here, or whatever type of cordage you have. I'm gonna be using bank line. This is going to go to my spring pole. Down here, this will be where my notch is, and down here will be my fishing line with the hook going into the water. So that's why you need to make sure you gauge it enough, give yourself enough room where you still have the ability to notch this out and attach your fishing line, because you don't want to just tie your fishing line right to this because it can slip off. Same with the bank line. It's going to be the same type of thing, just creating a notch. Carve this out nice and deep, get it cleaned up. This is also something that you can do relatively quickly. All you have to do is cut yourself a couple of sticks, a couple of notches, find yourself a good spring pole. It's very similar to doing a spring snare just out on a game trail or something like that when you're looking for snaring small game animals or even larger game animals, you know, snaring mammals. But this is going to be on the water's edge, so you're able to actually, this is like a passive fishing method. All right, so now I need to carve this down some more. All right, so after you get your two notches carved, I'm going to want to beaver chew around this, but not deep enough to actually take this piece off. I just want to get edge here out for where my line can go, where I'll have my cordage. A nice area. I want basically a lip around here that my cordage can attach to, so it stays attached while there's actual pressure on it, tension from the spring pole. That's why this little lip here is so important. It's going to clean it up a little bit more, but that's why this is so important. This will keep your line attached, your cordage, on this side, and then I'll also make one down here. This will keep the line attached onto my actual trigger stick. Alright, so this is what you're going to want it to look like. Notched out here, notched out here, and you have your notch. It's going to attach to your stake, your ground stake. Remember, it's going to go into the ground. It's going to attach here, and this is going to be where the tension is. The tension is going to be pulling up. That's why I made this longer, because this is going to be driving into the ground, into a very soft area. So I want to have this where it's secure enough where it actually stays in the ground with the spring pole tension. So these are a couple other items. I have some bank line. I always keep bank line on me and in my kit. Super duper useful and super important to carry. And this is just a little fishing kit. I already have a video on this. I showed it in a different video. This little fishing kit just has some lures here, hooks, sinkers, bobbers. I have a bobber and some safety pins. I have some more bank line in here. So I have all these items in here that I can use both in a survival situation if I absolutely had to in an emergency, or if I just want to be out fishing. I could always make a cane pole with this. I could do hand lines with this. I could do bank sets if I wanted to. Now, I do want to preface this and say that this is totally for demonstrational purposes. I'm not actually going to be catching anything today. This specific set may not be legal in your area. A lot of areas you're not allowed to do this type of fishing. So just make sure you check your regulations. I'm not doing any fishing today, so this is, like I said, purely for demonstrational purposes. But I'm going to go ahead and tie all these on, and I'll show you guys. By the way, really cool about this, it has a little gasket, so you could use this. So this will keep this dry. Not that it really needs to stay dry. I mean, it's a fishing kit, but you could use this for other stuff. This little tin, you know, I could use it for fire kit, whatever. But I thought that was pretty cool, and one of the added benefits of carrying a tin with you is that I could always poke a hole in this and put this in the fire if I wanted to make charred material, like char cloth or punk wood. If I found some punk wood, I could always char this in the fire and have that for my next fire mentality. So that's kind of another perk of this, and why it's so important to have multifunctional items. All right, when you're done, you'll have your fishing line tied to the bottom of your trigger stick, and at the top you'll have your bank line or whatever type of cordage you're using. You could use Kevlar cordage, you could use paracord, you could use fishing line, you can use braided line, whatever you want. I'm just using bank line, and this will actually attach to my spring pole, and this is what's going to go into the water. And remember, another thing, a little tip: big hooks catch big fish, little hooks catch all fish. You can catch a small fish like a bluegill, or as big of a fish as a catfish with a small hook. So remember, keep the small hooks in your kit and leave the big hooks for when you're out bass fishing with worms, you know, plastic worms and jigs and stuff like that. For your survival kit or your emergency kit, or if you're just out, you know, throwing these hand lines, keep these little small hooks because you can catch anything with them. Also, because this is purely demonstrational, I'm not going to put any weights on this. Depending what my bait is, you know, that's going to obviously determine if you want to put weights on your hook, also the depth, how far out you're going to be fishing, all those types of things. But I like to keep some tiny sinkers in there in my kit just in case I want to attach them to my line. Same with a bobber. Keep a bobber in your kit because you want to have as many options as possible. Alright, so this is what it looks like. As you can see, it's super duper wet over here. The difference with this and in other types of snares is that you have your hook. So basically what you would do is you would bait your hook, set your snare, throw this out in the water, and then when something pulled on it, it would actually set the snare. Some of my favorite baits, I like to actually carry some of the Berkeley catfish bait. It's like a scented bait that you can keep in like a small plastic bag in your kit. I use it a lot. I actually have one of my other videos where I'm catching panfish with it on a hobo reel. I like to carry that with me so I don't have to look for bait while I'm out, but if you want to, you can use anything that you find. Wigglers are probably the best. You can bring bread with you, whatever you want to use, but cast it out into the water, and then what would happen is that while you were, the fish would pull on the line slowly, and pull the line right out of my hand. That would have been a hook in the mouth of an unsuspecting fish trying to take my bait. Alright guys, so that's the video. It was both a demonstration on this particular knife and also a technique that you can use if you ever caught yourself in a situation where you needed to procure food. You could do that, especially if you are around the water. Now remember that when you're out and about, you should be looking for water sources anyway. Not only can that hydrate you, but it can also provide you a food and cooling in really hot times of the year. It just has so many uses. It's, you know, water is life. So finding water sources is going to be something important to you regardless. So when you're around something like that, you find a lake or a pond or a stream or something like that. Like for instance with this one, since I've been here, I've seen fish popping on top of the water. I have seen frogs. I've heard frogs. There are probably 40 game trails coming to this lake or this small pond from the mammals around here. I've seen raccoon tracks, I've seen hog tracks, I've seen deer tracks. So I know that there's a lot of game animals around here on top of the fish and frogs, and obviously there's going to be other reptiles like snakes, all things that you could use as a food source if you had to. So just take that into consideration when you're out and about. And this wasn't just supposed to be a demonstration of that. I also wanted to show how good of a knife this is, how well it carves, and just kind of do a review on it because I've had it for such a long time and I've never done a review on it. It's one of my favorite knives to carry. It also allows me to carry a full-size pistol on my strong side, and I can still have a really good fixed blade on my belt that I can attach because I'm carrying it horizontal. So it's just something that I like to use and like to carry a lot, especially if I'm going a little bit more lightweight and I don't want to carry a larger belt knife. I'll carry this small knife. I have a saw inside of my bag, so I don't need to do things like batoning, large logs, chopping, processing a lot of wood. I can do that, except for the batoning, I can do that with my silky saw. So anyways, that's pretty much for the video today, guys. Remember to like, subscribe, share these videos with your friends and family. Be safe, stay dangerous, and I'll catch you in the next one.